I'm Jeremy Greer.
And I'm Gary Butterfield.
And this is Days of Future Cast. And we are finished, Gary. This is it. This is what happens at the end of Deadly Genesis.
Mm-hmm. And stay tuned to the end of this episode to hear what we're doing next.
Special announcements.
Koi Boys.
It's Koi Boy Week on Days of Future Cast.
It's Koi Boy Week on Duckfeed.
And we are only going to kind of tell you what we think about this comic book. We think it's...
Yep. You're going to have to get the rest of it, you're going to have to go to our Instagram. Go log into our adult TikTok house.
I created a MySpace for us. Go check that out.
I love that MySpace is still around. I don't have my login and stuff, but my old band still has a MySpace, and there's still like MP3s that are up on there. And I can no longer access them. We
made a significantly long and probably completely unfunny joke about making a MySpace for Monster of the Week. So I did it. I like logged in and like tried to create a new account and do anything. And I have never seen a more incompetent, not since I've tried to use Mastodon, have I seen a more incompetent social media network, because like all it does is shove bands that you've heard of in your face. Like there's no like discovering anything, which is like kind of what I thought. I never had a MySpace. I was too cool for that shit. But like I was also not like plugged into, I was not making or consuming a lot of local music. So, but like never had that MySpace thing. But like I was like, oh yeah, here's, fucking, I can't even remember one of them. It was like Mr. Worldwide, whoever that guy is. I can't remember his name now. Shit, who was that dude?
Dude, like you're asking literally the second worst person to ask after you.
I can't remember. It doesn't matter. People are losing their minds on this podcast right now. But yeah, it was like the most popular mainstream artist of all time. It was like, do you know this guy? Do you want to follow him? I'm like, no, not at all.
Yeah. No, I'm good. I'm doing this for a podcast
Pitbull.
joke.
That's who it is. I can't remember Pitbull.
I knew who Pitbull was. I didn't know he was known as Mr. Worldwide.
Yeah, that's the thing. So,
that's
stole it from me.
Not super familiar with the lesser and greater works of Pitbull. You know?
No, you haven't.
All right, yeah, no.
Not even. I mean, sometimes Gary, if you don't want to be left behind, you really have to reach out and try to connect with the kids.
I yearn for the day I am left behind. Is the thing.
And by kids, I mean the people that pay other artists to do Sprite commercials. That's who I'm telling you to connect with.
Yep, I'm good. Leave me behind. Here's our finale.
Yes.
So all of a lot of the stuff has been dropped. Xavier.
Yep.
No powers.
Walking around.
Third Summer's brother. Kabambo.
The X-Men has the shittiest cemetery in all of history, according to this cover, which I very much adore. Just some X's, just some plus signs with some just tattered rags on them.
Yep. No good.
Why does Wolverine look so pretty on this cover, Gary?
It's lots of face makeup.
Yeah.
Like this is like makeup tutorial Wolverine.
Dude looks like he's had his cheekbones done. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. Show me something in a beautiful, elegant Wolverine. He's also pretty tall as well. I hate it when people draw Wolverine tall.
Me too.
He's as tall as Colossus.
Yeah.
Just come on, dude. But luckily Mark Silvestri's a piece of shit.
Yeah.
Fuck this guy in his cover.
So we left off with all of the X-Men, or the current team of X-Men, confronting Kid Vulcan on Muir Island. Xavier has shown up and is about to confess all of his misdeeds, and it's a exposition-heavy issue, everybody.
Yes.
He's revealed that he can't use his telepathic powers, so he's going to just have to, talk to him.
Yep. Everybody kind of freaks out about this, obviously, and Vulcan gets into some bigotry. I'm more powerful than all your X-Men, and you're just a human.
Yeah.
Like, you're not even anything more than that. He's upset because this was part of his plan. Like, he had this big plan for revenge, specifically making the X-Men feel what he felt that day.
Mm-hmm.
Xavier's like, I can't do that, and he's like, Marvel Girl, you do it.
Yeah.
Borrow Professor Xavier's brains. Do this or I'm going to blow him up.
And we get exactly what happened when this new team of X-Men land on Krakoa. And it's very bad. Like they immediately encounter a lot of resistance. This island is basically a nutso island, immediately trying to kill it. And like everybody is telling Kid Vulcan, like, hey, this this feels super weird. We've already lost communication with the professor. Like this is no good. We need to do something else. And Kid Vulcan just pushes ahead. Sway uses her powers to determine that the X-Men are still alive. And, of course, Vulcan, who now knows that Cyclops is his brother, is like, we're going to go on no matter what.
And this is kind of good characterization, I guess, for Vulcan. Like, as much as I don't love Vulcan, he's really mad at Scott. He's really mad at Xavier and stuff. He's got some guilt too, right? Like he's the one who was pushing them on. Everyone was saying like, let's go back. And he's like, we can't do that. We're X-Men.
Yeah.
Like we have to do that. Don't forget, you're a fucking X-Man. We don't run, so there's a little bit of guilt motivating him, which I like.
And even though he's showing like kind of an awesome display of power and like they're all using their powers very well, like they're not making any kind of dent on these things. Like they're everything keeps forming back together. The thing is just a mindless monster that they can't deal with. And they're even though they get Scott out, they aren't really like they're not doing anything. Like they're not winning this. Like they only managed to get Scott and not any of the other X-Men out.
Yeah. During this plan, Xavier and Rachel, or during this viewing, make a little plan. Like they get out of range, and Vulcan is distracted by the emotional content, and he's basically like, "I can, he's really dangerous. I have a plan. If we move quickly, we can take care of this."
Yeah.
In the past, like they're taking him there, and Cyclops is like, "What's going on? My powers aren't working. You're those kids. What are you doing here?" And this Vulcan's like, we're not kids. We're full-fledged X-Men. We've been training for months. Cyclops is like, months? Look at this calendar.
look at my watch. It can do sums.
Yeah.
And it has a clock.
Xavier said not to look at calendars while we're on the island, so we don't want to.
Xavier said we're not to look at calendars. It's very funny to
me. Yeah. And he basically reveals like, hey, I'm your brother too. Like I'm a Summers. He knew it from the moment we were there, before I met him. And he's just like, that's wild. At this point, Havoc interrupts. He's like, I'm also a Summers brother. Like, why haven't I been a bigger part of this story?
Yeah, I'm here. Me too.
Yeah. I exist.
I'm here. I had to take off my cargo shorts for this. I need some attention.
Yeah. Like, you see how uncomfortable my new costume looks? And he basically is like, what the hell? Vulcan's like, yeah, somebody can make you forget things.
Mm-hmm.
Havoc is about to flip out on Xavier until Xavier is like, no, Gabriel wasn't born on Earth. Like, it's not what you think.
Yeah.
And we find out the reason why he's the third Summers brother is because Corsair's, the Cyclops' mom, Corsair's wife, was pregnant when they were kidnapped.
Yes. And when they killed the wife, they drug the unborn baby out of it, which there's an absolutely gruesome shot of that in this comic book, which seems kind of excessive. But then because the Emperor at the time needed a bunch of slaves, they put it in an incubation a goo tank. Everybody, it's more goo.
Yeah,
it's a goo tank.
Yeah, nutrient bath.
And grew the baby super fast. So the baby is like way older than it should be.
Yes. And this is a big revelation to Vulcan. I knew there were aliens, but I didn't know. And Charles is like, can you see your life has had such tragedy? This is horrible. Don't add to it. You're a victim too. And he's just like, he assumes that Xavier's trying to use his powers on him. Mm-hmm. He's so unused to anybody expressing empathy that he assumes it's a trick. And he basically says, all you've done is give me a new person to hate. Like the Shi'ar have now made my shit list.
Yeah. And then Xavier said, he demands that Xavier finish the story. So Xavier says, Rachel, show us Cyclops memories, but Cyclops doesn't actually have them. They're in my mind, not his. And of course, Cyclops, I love Cyclops. I can't believe you just said that. Like, what the fuck are we doing? This is ridiculous. And sure enough, it's now time for Cyclops, who just got back to the mansion, having been rescued by this team, and the team went immediately back. And things didn't go well.
To grab the rest of the X-Men. Yep. And they get slaughtered.
Mm-hmm.
Just like Krakoa is incredibly pissed. It stole something from them. And also, Vulcan was actually able to hurt it. So this living volcano thing pops up and just kills everybody.
Yeah.
Slices people in half, kills them and everything. And Cyclops is freaking out. I didn't get hurt in this place. This isn't how it happened. You know, I let my own brother die. I let Jean down. You know what happened? And we come back to Xavier, you know, coming back in, you know, when Cyclops had come back, he wanted to go rescue the rest of them and on his own. And Xavier was like, you know, you can't do that. There's still hope. Like, we have to do this differently. But he wouldn't listen. So Xavier put him to sleep.
Yep.
Not like a dog. Like, Xavier didn't like take him to the Humane Society and like inject him. He made him go to sleep and erase those memories, because Cyclops, while he still had those memories, he was going to rush off alone to go get killed.
Yep. Because, you know, Cyclops is Cyclops. And of course, Moira knows this, and they have a confrontation of which she demands, like, what are you going to do about this? You know, how is he going to handle this? How is he going to live like this? And Xavier says, well, you know, I decided that he doesn't need to know. And she says, you've decided? And like, should be noted, like, Xavier's crying during this, like he's got literal tears on his face. So like, this is not an easy thing for him to come to, but you know, he made that decision on behalf of Cyclops. In the present day, Cyclops is like, no, the island just let us go. Like, it spoke to us. And Xavier's like, nope, full on lie, made all that shit up. Sorry, dude. Like, I made all that up. It's weird.
Yeah. And it shows him with the giant size X-Men there. And he's like, this is what it really sounded like. And the island just goes, rah, 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 rah. You know, because if you read Giant Size X-Men #1, I was on that, you know, shout out to My Marvelous Year, that podcast. I guessed it on the year, like 1975 of Giant Size X-Men. It's a weird comic. And it is real weird that the island's like, go get more mutants for me. And Cyclops is like, yes, sir.
Right away.
And goes and does it. You know, so the idea that this is Xavier influencing his mind to justify this makes a lot more sense. You know?
And yeah, so, you know, Vulcan calls him out. You're even more devious than I thought. And of course, he asked the most important question in this is like, if everybody on this island died, why am I not dead? And Rachel has figured this out where nobody else has. He basically, as they were dying, he's absorbed all of their powers. And Darwin used basically the last of his power to protect him as the island got sent out into space.
Yeah, they all saved. Like, they all saved him. Like, Sway made the time slow down. Petra made them go into the Earth. Darwin saved him and sent you know, everything off into space. Or Jean Grey sent her go into space. They were still there underground. Most of them dead, but Vulcan not dead.
Yep.
So he was sent up into space.
And like Nightcrawler, Darwin did a piggyback. He's still in there. And it's time. And Rachel
says
anything
to survive,
because he can do anything. And Rachel reaches out and says it's time for him to wake up. And like a weird psychokinetic smoke starts coming out. And of course, Logan, when this happens, Vulcan collapses and he's in pain. And Logan sees this as a weakness. So he's like, oh, I'm going to go kill this dude now. This is the time for me to go kill somebody.
Yeah. I love this like dialogue here where like Xavier's like, what have you done? And he's like, I did what you told me to do when we were planning. I found his weakness. And Wolverine's just like, weakness, you know, and just immediately runs forward. Good Wolverine content, but now they can take him.
Yeah.
They're basically, you know, we may not get another chance, Chuck. We have to take him. Emma asked Scott what to do. Like, he's back. He's the leader. And he's like, whatever he's been doing to shut them off, my powers are back. Logan is right. We have to stop him.
Yep. There's some fighting. Everybody is kind of just doing the normal attack routine. And then Wolverine throws Kitty Pryde through him. And that seems to like really fuck him up as she phases through him, and it seems to really fuck her up as well. So, yeah, they've got him on the ropes, you know. And Cyclops tells him to give up. He's like, "So this is the X-Men now?" I'm like, "Dude, you've just been killing people left and right. Like, you know, I don't know if you get to cast stones here. You got no moral high ground on this.
No moral high ground at all." He basically, you know, I can't believe I wanted to be one of you. You're not my brother. You're not anything. And flies off into space as a big teen pout.
Yeah.
And then goes off into a miniseries where he fights the Shi'ar that you could not pay me to read.
No.
So
what if, Gary, if somebody donated to patreon.com/Duckfeed?
Had to be a lot, man. I don't want to start auctioning off the
no, not at all.
You know, the rights to choose what we do on this show.
Not at all. That would be that would just put us right back at X-Men Evolution because people are goofs on the internet.
We've evolved. We no longer have to do that.
Cyclops is extremely angry, tells Professor Xavier not to touch him, and refuses to listen to anything he says. But they also have to deal with Darwin, who is basically putting his body back together again somehow.
Yeah.
And a week later, as two more Sentinels like kind of hang out over the mansion, like he's even gone further. So we saw him as a skeleton, and now he's got a nervous system and some skin going. So he's literally bringing his own body back because that's what Darwin does.
Yep. And we go to the funeral that the Sentinels are watching, where all the X-Men are have created tombstones, not just for Banshee, but also for the other X-Men who died on Krakoa that they didn't know they had, Sway and Petra.
Super sucks that Xavier had not done that before.
Yep, it seems like it would have really put a hole in his this never happened.
I'm just saying.
Like, every day someone's like,
who's Petra?
Charles, I was walking through the graveyard. I wanted to visit Jean's grave, and I saw Petra. Who's Petra? Just like immediately erasing his mind.
What if somebody came up to him and was like, hey, I've got these cool powers. I mesmerize people with my hips. Like, all I have to do is kind of move them back and forth, and they're mesmerized. I want to call myself Sway, and he's like, denied. Request denied.
Yeah. Like just a big stamp.
Your name is Shakira now. Go away.
Your name is Winehouse. She's not using it.
Rough chuckle.
So we get there, and Xavier tries to do his traditional apology thing.
Mm-hmm.
Again, this story has a lot in common with like the Dark Phoenix movie. Actually, he's like, "Listen, I know I betrayed you. Let me explain." And Cyclops is like, "I know why you did it. I do understand. I've known you most of my life. I've trusted you. I know you weren't perfect, but I can't do this. Like, I can't get over this. You're no longer welcome here." Xavier's like, "This is my home." He's like, "No, this is the Institute. You're not even a mutant. Like, you don't get to stay here." So that's the other kind of big deal that happens out of this.
Yeah.
Is Xavier no longer gets to, and presumably he owns it, but fuck him. He doesn't get to stay there anymore. Mutants only.
I mean, like, he's been gone for a while. They probably had him declared legally dead because, Kitty Pryde, is no stranger to paperwork. So she got that shit done immediately.
Yeah, exactly. Like, Kitty Pryde has signed over the property rights already. So, and I forged your signature, and I don't want to hear fucking one thing about it.
It's the same panel, except instead of Professor Xavier's a jerk, it's like, Professor Xavier has legally been declared dead, and we could get all of this stuff.
Professor Xavier is a notary. He signed it. And that's Deadly Genesis. Like, a bunch of stuff. It didn't last until 2020, but a bunch of big stuff happened.
Well, and we should mention that the last page of this is just Kid Vulcan flying into space with visions of his dad being murdered, or his mom being murdered, and the guy that did it, which is Shi'ar dude, whose name I forget because I don't care about Shi'ar that much.
It's like it's not Dakin, because that's Wolverine's son. It's not Brandon.
I'm pretty sure
it's Brandon.
I don't think we should look it up, but I'm pretty sure it's Brandon the Shi'ar. I don't know how you could prove me wrong.
There's I know who this guy is from my vague X-Men knowledge, but I don't remember because
he's one of those. He's a bird person.
He's a bird person.
Yeah, like we've talked about. Yeah. Like, I think this is a really good miniseries. I like. I'm kind of a sucker sometimes for this, like, let's alter the future and like, let's tell you what really happened with some stuff, like some basic stuff that you thought you knew.
A retcon.
I like some retcon sometimes. I guess that's what you would call it. I'm so associate retcon with bad that I couldn't get to that word, I guess.
Like a story of like what really happened in the margins of a story you really know.
Yeah.
Very well is what I think that's what you're talking about, and that's what I'm a sucker for as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like something that recontextualizes stuff you've already seen, especially when it's got this kind of like mythic, weight to it.
Mm-hmm.
Like the new X-Men coming and grabbing the old X-Men from Krakoa is the beginning of why the X-Men were ever good, really.
Yeah.
Like 60s X-Men, those are bad comics generally. Like this was the beginning of like the Claremont era, a couple issues from that, and when like things started becoming what made us fall in love, with the property. So the idea of like, you don't know everything about that is really interesting and compelling to me. At the time, this set up a pretty interesting status quo for the X-Men, Xavier being kicked off the farm. That's interesting. answering that third Summers Brother mystery, had a bunch of Cyclops stuff. I think this is in the beginning of what leads to Utopia. Like when he goes off and lives in San Francisco on that island, is partly because of a lack of Xavier's guidance. So this had an impact for a while.
Yeah. And it's, again, like I think it's a little stretched out. Like, I don't think this needed necessarily be 6 issues. But I it's enjoyable for what it is. Like, it's a good story. Like, it, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's not perfect, and I don't think it's as the highs are not as high as something in like New X-Men, but it's extremely consistent, and it tells the story that it wants to tell extremely well. As much as I kind of feel like Kid Vulcan, like I kind of wish that dude had just been a dude, right? Like there's an alternate version of the story where he doesn't fly off to space. Instead, like the X-Men adopt him and try to rehabilitate him. That I think is even more interesting. But Marvel gonna Marvel. Like they had to have a dude fly into space at the end of something. So
yeah, it's the kind of thing that like if the X-Men had a more modern story would take this thing very differently.
Yeah, I think so.
It's very of its time. Yeah. So, but for what it is, I really like this story. Not as much as I like what we're covering next.
Gary, you've been dying, man. You've been dying to tell people. Let's get it out there.
Dying. We're getting to another big one. We took our month off to do small stories. We're going to cover the Peter Milligan, Mike Allred, X-Force and Ecstatics run.
Yes, we are.
Bam.
You're excited, man. This is your favorite series?
This is so my favorite X-Men series is Grant Morrison's New X-Men.
Sure.
If I count Associated X-Men, this is my favorite.
Okay.
Not my favorite comic of all time. Like that's probably going to be like Authority or Providence or something.
Yeah. Something real stuffy and intellectual, right?
Yeah. Some Vertigo wankery. But I think this comic,
I like
Mike Allred is my favorite.
Plantation Vampire. That's my favorite comic book.
Yes. Mike Allred is my favorite comic artist.
Mm-hmm.
This comic is really funny and has a lot of really imaginative ideas.
Yeah. It's really a fun read, and like the imagination part of it, like just the like, hey, we're going to go really crazy in this universe is really the attractor for me of just like, we're not going to do the basic kind of storylines and things that you're used to seeing. Like we're going to get into some weird places. And that's again, just very attractive to me.
It was very much too like the first comic that I remember reading that was dealing with the idea of, so the X-Men are really defined by angst. It's like, hey, you're incredibly attractive, you have super cool powers, but somehow this is, the worst curse in the world. Sometimes it's, Rogue or Cyclops, it's bad for them, but you look at somebody like Colossus and it's like, how is this so bad? And this is the first comic that plays with the idea, like, no, in this world where people already respect superheroes, this would be commodified, and there would be mutants who just wanted to be famous. And shallow, shitty reality TV mutants.
Yeah.
Is what we're getting. And they, but it's not, the thing that I think makes it work is it's not a very cynical comic. Like they're real characters, like they're kind of shitty and they're kind of shallow, but they are trying their best. And there are stories that deal with them actually grappling with heroics, like being a hero during this. They don't make big speeches about it. There's always this little bit of a shield of irony to it, but it's got heart as well. So I'm extremely excited to reread it. I have read it many times over.
Remind people out there, and also your co-host, what exact issues that they will need to be reading before they listen to or host this podcast. Do you remember off the top of your head?
I'm looking it up right now. So X-Force 116.
Okay.
Is the beginning of this. There are just a few issues of X-Force where it's before it cuts over to being Ecstatics.
Cool. Just wanted to throw it out there for people because I think all of it is on whatchamacallit?
Marvel Unlimited.
Marvel Unlimited. Yeah. So
yeah, it shows up whenever they do a like these are the quirky stories that you may have overlooked things. I collected this as it came out as well. So I definitely have like a feeling of like I remember what it was like to respond to these and what people were thinking of them. Like this was a big hit when this came out. It's around the New X-Men, time. So this was in 2001 when this started. So this is part of the Grant Morrison push, for things. But people were really like, this didn't look like or feel like anything else that had been done. And Peter Milligan is a really inconsistent writer, but when he's good, he's so good.
Yeah. I'm I'm excited. I read some of this. I read like maybe the first 5 or 10 issues or something, like a year or two ago. Like I think right when we were first starting doing comic books, when we started the new X-Men run, and really, really enjoyed it, and was like, we're going to cover this for the podcast. I can already tell. Like that's going to happen one day. So yeah. So I waited. So a lot of this is going to be all brand new to me. So like I haven't read this. It's like I don't have the association that Gary does. So it's going to be a lot of fun going through it for the first time and getting to talk about it. So I hope you guys are excited about it as well.
I'm really excited for you to react to some of the designs that are just for like throw off characters. This introduces the idea of there being like farm leagues of like mutants who are just like fucking wild who want to get recruited for these teams. And they're all really weird.
That's
like
good shit, man.
Mike Allred does really imaginative, goofy looking mutants really well. So, yeah, I'm really excited.
Yeah, I am too. Stay tuned, everybody.
We'll be back. Yeah. And if you've never read it before, give it a chance. If you have read it and you don't like it, I'm going to do my best to try to convince you why this is cool.
Yeah.
And if you still decide you don't like it, you can spite me on Patreon.
What if I decide that I don't like it?
It'll make it a really rough, I respect you more than I care about comics.
Okay.
So if it came down to it and you're like, hey, I don't want to do this anymore, I would respect that and we'd move on to something different.
Oh man, what if?
But it would be difficult.
That'd be a weird convo of me being like, hey, this thing that you really like, I can't. I'm sorry. I just can't.
Yeah. I can't read it.
I can't do it.
Like, I can't push through it. Like it's light and breezy, but not light and breezy enough.
It's an interesting thing where like, I think in a situation like that where I wouldn't want to be the guy that is like, I hate this and I want to make fun of it on the podcast with you. Like I'll still do it as long as I get to like trash it. Like I wouldn't want to be that guy. I'd be like, maybe we should just do anything else. But yeah, which is why we don't announce these things super early. Like we announce that we wait for a while to make sure both of us kind of dig it. So I just think, awkward conversations, fun times.
And it's not like, I am coming out of the gates really swinging for this. It's not like there aren't issues that are less than other issues.
Sure.
And it definitely has like a tone that you have to kind of get on board with, at some point, like, so for example, the kind of thing that happens is, they had a story planned where Princess Di, comes back to life because she was a mutant and she joins the team and they had to change it. They made her into a different thing because editorial was like, well, you can't have Princess Di join the team.
I like that noise that she made. Editorial was like, whoa.
But when it's Princess Di, it's very funny because this character like walks around being like, my favorite charity is landmines and stuff. That's very fucking funny. Like, that's a good ass joke. There's a 5-issue thing where they fight the Avengers that is like extremely funny, where one of the main characters has to wear a suit because he's too sensitive, and he fights Iron Man, but it's in this nudist colony where they think it's holy to be naked, so they both, to respect the locals, take off their suits, and they have to fight naked, and it's both of these suit-based heroes without suits, and like it's Mr. Sensitive like hitting spots on Tony that are pressure points that activate his heart to make it, and then him throwing grass at Mr. Sensitive, which feels like blades.
Perfect,
because his skin is super sensitive. It's very funny. Funny ass comic.
I'm excited. So we're gonna have a good time with this one. I feel it in my gut. Thank you everybody for listening. We very much appreciate it. If you want to support the show, patreon.com/Duckfeed.tv is the best place to do it. Second best is telling your friends. Third best is patreon.com/Duckfeed.tv. That's right. It's on there twice. It's weird how that works.
Yep. Exactly. It's a sandwich.
It's a weird support sandwich. That's
a support sandwich.
And be careful where you eat it.
Like a small.
See you next time.
Good night.
Good night.